Chapter 1 Born beneath twin SUNS, the desert does not forget. Beneath the twin suns of Tatooine, time burns slowly, and the bones of the past lie just beneath the sand. Winds whisper of ancient things, tribes, lost, blood spilled, and stars that fell screaming from the sky. Here, in the silence between suns, something unnatural was born. Not of love, not of union, but of will, of design, of the Force itself, dreaming a storm into being. In the slave quarters of Mos Espa, a woman cried out. Her name was Shmi, and she was a servant to the whims of others, shackled in chain and silence. No man had touched her womb, no father had shaped the boy, and yet he came. His cry was the sound of prophecy. His heartbeat echoed through the Force, like a drum struck by destiny. His name was Anakin. The Force rippled the moment he took breath. In ancient temples, light years away, old holocrons flickered without reason. Jedi masters awoke from troubled dreams, and deep within the unknown regions, a shadowed presence, something ancient, patient, watching, opened its unseen eyes. The boy was not merely born, he was summoned, brought forth by energies long buried, a virgins in the Force, born not to bring balance, but to awaken something forgotten. He grew among junk and rust. His hands, small and scarred, repaired engines, and droids with an instinct that had no teacher. The other children bled in the sand arenas. He fixed lasers. He spoke to machines. The Force moved through him like wind through dunes, silent, constant, unseen. His mother watched with reverence, but fear, too. She knew he was not ordinary. He moved to isolate. He saw things before they happened. He spoke of dreams too vast for any child to hold. Night after night, he looked to the stars. He spoke of places he had never seen, forests dripping with mist, oceans of green light, temples built in the sky. I was there, he once whispered to his mother, but not as me, someone else. Long ago. She kissed his forehead and said nothing. But in her heart, she felt the truth coil like a serpent, and in the shadows, eyes turned toward the boy. A Jedi came, not by chance. The Force guided him. Qui-Gon, Jinn Master of Defiance, seeker of ancient prophecy, servant of a truth deeper. Then the Council's order arrived in Mos Espa, led not by politics, but by the invisible hand of fate. He found the boy fixing a podracer, found him laughing with innocence, found him surrounded by energy that defied logic. Qui-Gon did not need a test. He knew the prophecy had spoken of one who would bring balance. And now, that one stood before him, small and unaware. He tested the blood. Midichlorian counts that broke every known scale. Higher than Yoda, higher than any Jedi who had ever lived. The Force was not just around Anakin, it was him. But prophecy is a lie whispered by time. Balance is a word twisted by desire. The Force does not promise peace. It only promises reaction. Creation births destruction. Light births shadow. Qui-Gon asked the boy, "Are you ready to leave?" The boy did not hesitate. Not for the sand. Not for the slavery. Not for the sunburned town of small people and smaller fates. He asked only about his mother. She could not come. The chains were still hers. And so he left her behind, Anakin Skywalker. Age 9, slave child of no father, stepped onto the path of destiny. But even then, the shadows moved. Darth Sidious, masked as the Republic's Chancellor, felt the boy's presence as a tremor in his web. He did not know the face. not yet. But the Force screamed of change. His plan decades in the weaving now, brushed against a thread he had not placed. But Sidious did not fear. He welcomed disruption. All power must be earned through chaos. The Jedi Council rejected Qui-Gon's plea. They sensed danger in the boy, fear, attachment, a darkness waiting. They spoke of rules, of tradition, of caution. But their caution was a blindfold. Their temple, once the brightest point in the galaxy, had become a tower of echoes. They saw danger, but not its direction. The boy stood before them, small but unbowed. "I am not afraid," he said. Yoda looked into his soul and saw storms. "Be mindful of your feelings," they told him. But feelings had already rooted themselves. Love for his mother, gratitude for Qui-Gon, hope for something more, and far away, in the places between light and shadow, the Force watched itself through him. For the Chosen One had taken his first steps, not toward balance, but toward fracture. The boy's dreams continued, dreams of burning, of screams, of metal, of breath that came not through lungs, but through machines. He told no one, not even Obi-Wan, who now watched him with quiet resentment. The Council had denied him training. Qui-Gon defied them and named him Padawan, but fate intervened. Qui-Gon died at the hands of Acerth, and in that moment the galaxy shifted. Obi-1, bound by promise and grief, took the boy as his own. Not from faith, but from duty. The Master was gone. The Council relented, and so Anakin Skywalker was brought into the Order, into the great stone temple of Coruscant, into the ancient halls where legends walked and ghosts whispered through the columns. But even then the Force trembled, for the boy was a storm not yet awakened, and the Jedi, blind in their certainty, welcomed him with arms unaware of the fire they now held in the archives, beneath the glow of forgotten holocrons. He read stories of Jedi who fell, of love denied, of darkness misunderstood. He read of ancient Sith, not as monsters, but as men with reasons, as beings who sought freedom from order. The seeds were there, the soil was prepared, and far beneath Coruscant, in chambers hidden beneath durestial and secrecy, a voice began to stir, watching, waiting. The desert had let him go, but it had not forgotten. The twin suns had carved something into his bones, something neither light nor dark, something deeper. The Chosen One had left the sands behind, but the storm had followed him, and in the Force a whisper stirred. He will bring balance, but at what cost? Chapter 2. The Phantom Prom is there are promises that echo not from lips, but from the Force itself, faint formless oaths buried deep in the marrow of time, and there are those who speak them, not as truth, but as traps. So it was with the child Anakin Skywalker, and so it was with the Order that believed they held the light. In the twilight of the Republic, shadows walked among the stars, wearing the robes of men. One such shadow was cloaked in crimson silk, seated high in the Senate's throne of deception. His name to the public was Palpatine, a chancellor of calm voice and kindly eyes. But beneath that smile, a darker truth pulsed. He was no man of peace. He was a wound in the Force, the last Sith Lord, hidden in plain sight. Darth Sidious. He watched the boy with careful hunger, not yet touching, not yet revealing, but always watching. On Coruscant, within the marble veins of the Jedi Temple, Anakin moved like a star burning against a sky too slow to understand it. The Jedi saw his fire and called it potential. They did not see the shadow it cast. they taught him their codes, their dogma, their peace. But he was not born of peace. He was born of conflict. His soul sang with intensity, with yearning, with love unpermitted by their creed. They called him Padawan, but he was a mirror of the future they feared. Each lesson carved lines of friction into his skin. Patience, they said, control, let go of attachment. But he remembered the warm hands of his mother. He remembered leaving her behind in the dust. Every breath since had been a betrayal of her kindness, and still they told him to let go, to deny, to sever. But promises unspoken carry weight, and the boy had been promised greatness, not by word, but by the Force itself. Prophecy had named him the chosen one, the one who would bring balance, the one who would end the Sith. But no one asked what balance truly meant, and no one saw that even prophecies may lie. Anakin trained beneath Obi-Wan, but the bond was brittle. Obi-Wan taught as one who had inherited duty, not chosen it. He obeyed the Council's will. He was calm, measured. But Anakin was wild starlight, untamed and brilliant, needing not a master but a father. Instead, he received a teacher made of walls and far beyond. Sidious whispered into the gaps. He cloaked his intentions behind politics. He praised Anakin before the Senate, granted him favor, celebrated his victories. To the boy, the Chancellor became a second son, one that warmed rather than judged. He listened without caution. He offered advice without condemnation. His words dripped with kindness, but each one was a needle. "You are a great Jedi already," he once said, eyes gleaming. Behind the mask, greater, perhaps, than even Master Yoda in time. And Anakin believed him, because he needed to. The Council sensed something amiss. Yoda, silent in meditation, saw ripples in the Force. Mace Windu narrowed his eyes when Anakin was praised. Too highly, but their concerns were veiled in riddles and hesitation. They feared Sidious, but they did not see him. Their blindness was the price of their pride. And in their indecision, the web tightened. War had begun. On distant worlds, clones and droids slaughtered under banners painted with false purpose. The separatist crisis, engineered by Sidious and his puppet Tyrannist, divided the galaxy, not by belief, but by fear. The Jedi were called from their temples into battlefields. Diplomats became generals. Peacekeepers became warlords. Anakin, now a commander, tasted blood for the first time, and the taste did not repel him. In the roar of battle, the voices in his heart quieted. The rules no longer applied. Only survival, only victory, and he was good at it. Too good. His lightsaber carved through metal and bone alike. His instincts outpaced his orders. His men followed him with reverence, and in every command, in every victory, he heard the echo of the Chancellor's voice telling him, "You are powerful, you are unique, you are destined, but destiny is a chain as much as it is a crown." The Jedi returned from the front lines, scarred and broken. They looked at Anakin and saw a hero, but in private they doubted. They whispered, "He is dangerous. He is too attached. He is not ready." And in their chambers, they debated the meaning of the prophecy, as if meaning could be disassembled like a weapon. Anakin heard their doubts. He felt them in every silence, every withheld honor. They placed him on missions, but not on councils. They gave him command, but not trust. They saw the Force in him, but feared what it might become. And Sidious waited, patient, smiling, in the depths of Coruscant's galactic opera. Beneath a sky of swirling lights and fading music, the serpent began to show its fangs. The Chancellor invited Anakin to a private balcony away from Jedi ears. And there, in a voice low and coiling, he spoke of forbidden truths. Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis, the Wise? The story was not a tale. It was a confession. A Sith Lord so powerful he could manipulate midichlorians to create life, one who could prevent death, one who was betrayed, killed by his apprentice. The words hung like smoke. The implication was clear. Death could be conquered. Life could be preserved. Power true, divine, eternal was within reach, and Anakin, who dreamed each night of Padmé dying in childbirth, listened not with skepticism, but hunger. The promise had been made, but promises, like prophecies, lie. That night, the Force twisted. In its current, something shifted. Not a future set in stone, but a future seduced, and high above the stars. Sidious looked down upon the temple with silent joy. The boy had taken a step not into darkness, but into need. And in the quiet chambers of the Jedi, no one heard the future screaming. Chapter 3. The Temple of the Bealian Dether. Jedi Temple stood, like a blade of light upon the heart of Coruscant, 5 spires, piercing the heavens. Ancient walls layered in truth and illusion. But the light that bathed its towers was not pure. Beneath the gleam, rot had taken hold. Not of evil, not of betrayal, but of blindness. A blindness carved over centuries, etched by pride, tradition, and the illusion of righteousness within its marble halls. Jedi Masters walked in quiet robes, speaking of peace, while war screamed across the stars. The Order claimed serenity, but blood soaked their footsteps. They had become generals in a war they did not start, pawns in a game whose board they could no longer see. And in the center of this storm walked Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, unnoticed by the very seers who claimed to see all. He moved through the temple like a ghost with a heartbeat loved by some, doubted by others, but understood by none. The statues that loomed over the archives, the portraits of ancient masters, the scrolls of forgotten sects, they all seemed to watch him, not as a student, but as a warning. He felt their eyes when no one else did. He heard the silence behind, the chants, even the Force, once a warm hum, now whispered in tongues he could not translate. The Council had made their choice. Obi-Wan trained him, reluctantly at first, then fiercely. But though the blade was polished, the hilt remained cracked. Their bond was forged in duty, not understanding. Obi-Wan taught the code. Anakin questioned it. He asked why compassion was sacred but love was forbidden. Why attachment was a sin, yet the galaxy bled for their loyalty. He asked why justice wore armor and flew starships into cities. Obi-Wan offered answers, but they rang hollow, deep within the temple. Anakin wandered into the ancient meditation chambers, caverns of stillness carved before the Republic's birth. There, beneath the glow of Force-sensitive crystals and flickering starlight maps, he felt, watched, not by the Jedi, by the past. Whispers curled through the air scraps of dead languages, old chants from fallen sects. He placed his hand on one wall and felt something move beneath the stone. Not evil, not good, just ancient. He did not speak of it, not to Obi-Wan, not to the Council, not to Padmé. Some truths, he knew, were not welcome in temples of light. The Jedi preached clarity, but buried their contradictions. They spoke of the living Force, yet feared its chaos. They revered prophecy, but denied the Chosen One's voice. They claimed the dark side was death, yet denied the darkness in their own hearts, and Anakin saw it all. He began to dream of the temple not as sanctuary, but as cage. He was invited into the council chambers more often now, not as a master, never that, but as a weapon of war. His victories on the front made him indispensable, yet every seat around him was cold. Mace Windu's eyes held doubt. Ki-Adi-Mundi spoke in condescension. Even Yoda, the wisest among them, seemed to recoil from Anakin's presence, as though the boy carried a sickness none dared name. And still, the Force moved through him like fire. Visions came in sleep. Visions of Padme, crying, screaming, reaching. For him, across a void he could not cross. Her breath silenced, her skin cold. He woke, gasping, trembling, hands clenched around bedsheets soaked in sweat. He told no one, but the fear grew like roots in his soul. It took hold of every moment, even the good ones, especially the good ones. One night, in the council records, he found an entry long buried an echo of a Jedi who once questioned the code, who spoke of balance not as stillness, but as unity. His name was lost, erased, but the words remained. To deny the dark is to deny half the truth. The line struck him like a blade. He repeated it under his breath for days. To deny the dark, to deny the dark. The Jedi denied many things. They denied fear, denied grief, denied love, but Anakin had lived them all. He had felt them. They were real, more real than the chants, the codes, the hollow victories. The Force was not still. It was not clean. It moved through pain as much as peace, through death as much as life. The temple refused to accept this, and so it refused to accept him. Palpatine saw what the Jedi would not. He spoke to Anakin like no one else did. Not as student, not as soldier, but as equal. They fear you, he said once, as Coruscant's skyline shimmered behind him. Because they know your power. They see what you could become, and it terrifies them. And it was true. The council spoke in circles. They gave Anakin trust without respect. They offered missions, yet never titles. They praised his victories, but questioned his emotions. When he spoke of dreams, they warned against fear. When he spoke of love, they warned of loss. They never listened, only corrected. And so the temple, though majestic, became hollow. Anakin began to walk its halls in silence. He watched the younglings train with wooden sabers and innocent eyes, unaware of what awaited them beyond those doors. He walked past the statues of ancient masters and felt no reverence, only distance. He meditated, but found no peace. He listened to the Force, and it spoke not with comfort but with warning. He was a storm contained in glass, and the cracks had begun to form. Even Obi-Wan, who cared in his own guarded way, could not reach him now. The war had pulled them apart. Missions separated them. Death haunted them. And in the silence, Anakin found no refuge, only questions, only dread. The temple's spires reached toward heaven, but its roots were rotting. Its vision was clouded. Its truth was decaying. And beneath it all, the serpent moved. Sidious smiled behind his mask, watching as the cracks spread. He did not need to attack the temple. The Jedi were undoing themselves, and Anakin lost between two worlds. Orphaned by fate, chained by love, was drifting. The Chosen One walked among the blind, and the Force, in its infinite silence, whispered, "He sees what they cannot." Chapter. For the clone fire, it began not with the clash of armies or the cries of civilians, but with whispers, gentle, precise, orchestrated whispers, the kind that slip beneath doors and between council meetings, whispers of separatists rising, systems breaking away, a galaxy fraying at the edges. And through it all, one voice remained calm, constant, and guiding the Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious in truth, the hand behind the curtain, the fire behind the veil. He had planted the seeds long before the Republic noticed. He had found a fallen Jedi Count, Dooku, and twisted his grief into purpose. Dooku became tyrannous, apprentice, and architect. The separatist movement took shape beneath his command, and the galaxy, already cracking beneath bureaucracy and corruption, began to split in half. Entire star systems declared independence, waving banners of false freedom while unknowingly marching toward a war designed to consume them. The Jedi, once peacekeepers, were summoned to become soldiers. The Republic, once a government, became a war machine, and the war-crafted, sculpted, perfected ignited. In the sterile halls of Kamino, clones marched in silence, perfect copies, engineered obedience, not born, bred. They were created by an order placed long ago by a Jedi Master, long since erased Cypherdius, or so it seemed. In truth, it was Sidious. Through tyrannous, through deception, through manipulation of the very order sworn to oppose him, the Sith had built an army under Jedi command, and none of them saw it. Not the Council, not the Senate, not even Yoda, who now stood in the rain on Kamino, watching white-armored soldiers march toward a future written in ash. Anakin Skywalker stood at the center of it all, still a Padawan, still called learner, but the war made no distinction. His saber ignited like any other. His orders were obeyed like any general's. He led troops into fire, into metal storms, into battles meant to bleed him into something darker. And with every kill, the hesitation lessened. With every victory, the light dimmed. He was not afraid. That was the lie he told himself. War brought clarity, simplicity. In war, there were no doctrines, no contradictions, only survival. He was faster than any droid, stronger than any soldier. The Force surged through him on the battlefield, a river of instinct and rage. The Council watched his success with concern, but concern could not be spoken aloud, not when his victories kept the Republic alive. He fought on Geonosis, where the war first spilled blood. Jedi fell, hundreds. The first great slaughter of the Order. Anakin's blade cut through insectoid soldiers and mechanical horrors. And there, in the arena's dust, his arm was taken severed by Count Dooku, the traitor. Jedi who once sat among the Council. Obi-1 lay broken. Anakin in pain. Yoda arrived to save them, but the scar remained. His flesh was replaced, not healed replaced. Mechanical fingers, cold and perfect. The first piece of him no longer his own. The first step towards something that would one day breathe behind a mask. But he said nothing. He returned to the temple with his new arm and old silence. And Padme, always Padme, held him as he trembled. She did not know how deeply the war had marked him, how the screams followed him, how the blade never truly turned off. They were married in secret, not with celebration, but with quiet desperation. The Council did not know, or chose not to see. Missions continued, planets burned, Jedi scattered across systems they barely understood, leading armies they never asked for. Peace was forgotten. Duty became survival. And through it all, Anakin rose. Not by politics, by power. The war suited him. It made sense in a way the Order never had. There were enemies, objectives, victories, but it was not without cost. His soul began to shift. Every death, every scream, every moment of fear carved deeper into him. He began to see the world not as the Jedi taught but as it truly was. He questioned the code more openly. He argued with Obi-Wan. He defied orders. He saved lives, yes, but always on his terms. And the people loved him. Soldiers revered him. Senators praised him. Even the Chancellor called him friend. The best of the Jedi, he would say, the future of the Order. And Anakin believed him because he had to. The war reached the Outer Rim. Entire systems fell into chaos. Clone battalions were stretched thin. The Jedi, already dwindling, were spread across the stars, isolated and vulnerable. Dooku grew bolder. Grievous, his monstrous general, brought terror wherever he marched. Jedi fell by the dozens. Temples were destroyed. Archives lost, and Anakin grew colder. He no longer saw droids. He saw obstacles. He no longer paused before killing. The line between justice and domination blurred. Sometimes he would stop after battle and look at his hands, metal and flesh both, and wonder which part of him still felt anything at all. The dreams returned, Podmum screaming. His child dying, and he could do nothing. The war was outside him, but the real battle had begun inside. Fear, that was the true enemy. And fear, he now knew, was something the Jedi could not help him with. Only one voice remained steady. The Chancellor's. He met with Palpatine often now. In quiet chambers, above Coruscant, away from council ears. They spoke of war, of leadership, of strength, and slowly, gently, Palpatine began to place questions into his mind. Why do they not trust you? Why did they deny your mastery? Why did they ask you to fight, but not to lead? Anakin had no answers, only resentment. The temple was now a place of cold stares, of whispering masters, of silent judgment. They no longer welcomed him. They feared him, and he began to fear them. The war raged on. But the fire it unleashed was not confined to stars and systems. It now burned in the heart of the Chosen One. The clones fought without question. The Jedi fought without understanding. And in the shadows, the one who had lit the match watched it all with perfect stillness. Darth Sidious had given the galaxy war, and war had given him Skywalker. Chapter 5, The Forbidden Bow and D. There was a bond between them that no code could sever. Not distance, not doctrine, not even war. In the deepest silence of the galaxy, amid fire and betrayal, that bond still pulsed like a secret heartbeat beneath Anakin's armor Podmam to the Jedi. Attachment was weakness, possession, fear. They taught love was to be released, not held. But what they could not see, what they refused to understand, was that Anakin Skywalker did not love her as a man loves a woman. He needed her. She was his anchor, his salvation, the one thing in all the stars that reminded him he was still human. When the Force screamed in his ears, when blood stained his saber, when sleep brought visions of death and despair, it was Padme's voice that pulled him back from the abyss. But even she could not silence the dreams. They came in waves now. Always the same, her breath fading, her eyes closing, her hands reaching for him as life slipped away. He awoke, soaked in sweat, his heart thundering, the Force trembling around him like shattered glass. He clutched her at night, trembling like a child, whispering that he would not lose her. Could not lose her. He had already lost too much, and the Jedi offered nothing. No comfort, no guidance. They dismissed his pain as fear, as weakness. But it was not weakness that burned in Anakin, was clarity. He saw now how brittle their rules were, how blind their serenity. The galaxy was dying, and they spoke in riddles. Pamd was with child now. Their child, a secret life growing in secret shadows, a flicker of light the Jedi could never know. He smiled when he felt it. The Force shimmered around the unborn life, strong, bright, terrifying. He had sworn to protect her, to protect them. Both, but he did not know how. The dreams only grew worse. He began to suspect they were not dreams at all but visions. The Force trying to warn him. Just as it had warned him of his mother's death, so now it showed him Padmes, and this time he would not arrive too late. He would defy death. But how? That question haunted him. And like always, the only one who listened, the only one who truly listened, was Chancellor Palpatine. He no longer wore the mask of formality in Anakin's presence. They spoke now like old friends, like confidants, like conspirators. Palpatine knew of his marriage, of the child, of the fear. He said nothing, judged nothing. He understood. He told Anakin stories, ancient stories, tales the Jedi had buried, tales of the Sith, of dark knowledge, of forbidden powers. And then he spoke the name, Darth Plagueis, the Wise, a Sith Lord, long dead, a master of secrets so deep, even death itself could be undone. He had learned to keep those he loved from dying, not through healing, but through control. Through the very will of the Force, he could shape life, twist it, preserve it. Anakin did not breathe. He sat frozen, listening, his heart pounding louder than the Chancellor's words. Is it possible to learn this power? He whispered. Palpatine smiled. Not from a Jedi. The seed had been planted. It now took root in his soul. He no longer saw Sith and Jedi as opposites, but as liars wearing different robes. The Jedi preached peace, but waged war. The Sith sought power, but preserved life. Who, truly, were the traitors? Still, he hesitated, torn between love and duty, between truth and loyalty. Obi-Wan saw the change, the distance, the quiet fury behind Anakin's eyes. But he said nothing, could say nothing. There was too much war, too many missions, too little time, and always the Council watched. They summoned Anakin, praised him, decorated him. But they would not grant him rank. They would not make him a master, not even after all he had done. All he had sacrificed. Palpatine demanded it. Take my place on the Council, he said, as my personal representative. The Jedi agreed, but with suspicion. They gave him the seat, but not the title, not the rank. It was an insult, a public slap. Anakin burned with fury, but said nothing. Not yet. Then came the final betrayal. The Council asked him to spy on Palpatine, the one man who trusted him, the one man who shared his pain, the one man who offered him a path beyond fear and failure. Watch him, they said. He grows too. Powerful Anakin nodded, but something inside him cracked. He returned to Podmin's silence, held her, kissed her, promised again that he would save her. No matter what it took, no matter what he had to become. He stood now at a crossroads the Jedi could not comprehend. To save her, he would need power. To gain power, he would need knowledge. To gain knowledge, he would need to break the code. To break the code, he would need to fall. But what was a fall, if it meant salvation? He stood at the edge of the temple balcony, staring into Coruscant's endless dark. The stars whispered, the Force shivered, and in the distance a shadow smiled. The bond was forbidden, but it was eternal, and it would lead him to destiny. Chapter 6. The Siege of Elijat. The temple stood like a mountain above Coruscant, bathed in fading gold. It had once been a place of silence, of peace, of learning. Now it bristled with suspicion. The war had eaten its soul. The halls of meditation whispered like tombs. The light within it flickered, and Anakin walked its corridors as both son and stranger. Obi-Wan still called him brother, still reached out with kindness in his eyes. But he too had changed, worn thin by battle, hardened by orders, burdened by truths he could not speak. They spoke often, but said little, each guarded their silence like a blade. And the council had begun to feel like a fortress. Mace Windu's voice rang louder now than Yoda's. Cold, tactical, suspicious. He sensed danger all around them, but not within. He feared the Chancellor, but not his own walls. Anakin was caught between them, between the light that denied him and the dark that welcomed him. Between the Jedi who would not trust him and the Sith who offered him hope. The war drew near its end. General Grievous had fled to the Outer Rim. The Jedi, desperate to crush the Separatists, dispatched Obi-Wan to Utapau. It was a mission meant for the Council's most trusted. Not for Anakin. He was left behind, left with the Chancellor. The dream returned that night, Padme screaming, her body convulsing in pain, her breath halting, her skin cold, her death absolute. He awoke in terror, drenched in sweat. The Force cried out around him, and there was no one left to answer. So he went to Palpatine. The Chancellor sat in shadow, draped in the quiet power of secrets. His voice was calm, reassuring. He did not offer comfort, he offered understanding. "I know what you seek," he said. Anakin's breath stilled. "There is a way to save her, but only through the dark side." He said it plainly now. "No pretense. No disguise." He revealed the truth. He was the Sith, the master of a lineage the Jedi believed extinct. He had watched Anakin for years, had guided him, had protected him, had loved him as a son. "I can teach you," he said. "Everything Plagueis knew. I can give you the power to stop death itself." Anakin stood frozen. His hands trembled. The air around him thickened like a storm. But he did not strike. He left, and he went not to Padman, but to Windu. The Council was shaken. Palpatine's identity shattered their illusions. Windu gathered his most trusted, again Kohler, C, D, Kit Fisto. Together, they flew to arrest the Chancellor. Anakin watched them leave, and still the Force screamed. He waited only moments before following. A storm was rising in the heart of the Republic, and he was its lightning. He found them mid-duel. The Jedi were falling, one by one, their strength crumbling before the darkness they had never truly understood. Only Windu remained. He disarmed the Sith, held his blade above Sidious's throat. The darkness pleaded for mercy, weak, wounded, afraid. But Anakin saw through it. He saw the truth. The Jedi would not let Palpatine live. Windu would kill him. The one man who could save Padme, the one hope he had left. He cried out. He struck, and with that blow, the the temple fell, not in fire, not in war, but in betrayal. Palpatine rose from the floor, not as a man, but as a god. He cast Windu into the sky. Lightning split the heavens, and Anakin fell to his knees. "What have I done?" Palpatine's voice echoed like prophecy. "You are fulfilling your destiny, Anakin. Become my apprentice. Learn to use the dark side of the Force." And he did. He knelt. He took the name, Darth Vader. The siege had begun, not upon cities, not upon worlds, but upon the light itself. The temple stood silent as the sun dipped low. Its spires gleamed for the last time. Inside, younglings meditated in peace. Masters walked in thought. But shadows now seeped beneath the doors, and Vader returned, not in armor, not yet, but in black robes, with fire in his eyes and death in his hands. The clones received the order. Execute Order 66. Across the galaxy, Jedi fell like stars, betrayed by their soldiers, gunned down mid-breath. Some cried out, some fought, some vanished into dust. But the temple burned. Anakin led the clones through its gates, through the archives, through the sacred halls. His saber ignited like a second sun, red, unrelenting dot. No plea stopped him. No cry reached him. Not even the small voices of the young. He silenced them all. The siege of light was not a battle. It was a ritual. The extermination of memory. The destruction of legacy. The end of hope. By nightfall, the temple was still. Smoke rose from its shattered walls. Ash drifted through the air like snowfall. The great beacon, once used to guide lost Jedi home, now blared a signal of doom, a trap for survivors, a lure into death. Obi-Wan returned too late. He saw what had become of his brother, what had become of the temple, what had become of the light, and Padme wept. She wept without knowing why. Her heart broke from afar. A shadow passed through her womb, and something deep within her began to fade. Chapter 7. The Trial of Light and Fire. The Jedi Council Chamber was a circle of cold silence. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, fractured by clouds and war. Anakin Skywalker stood in the center, the hum of Coruscant far below. The masters watched him like stone statues' calm faces, masking storms beneath. Anakin Skywalker. Master Windu said, his voice a tempered blade, "You will sit on this council." The words struck like thunder. Anakin's chest tightened, pride and disbelief colliding. He had imagined this day, dreamed it, a seat among legends, the youngest ever to join their ranks. But then Windu spoke again. ... But we do not grant you the rank of master. The chamber seemed to tilt. Air vanished from his lungs. His ears roared. The title he had chased for years dangled before him, then yanked away like a cruel jest. What? The word escaped sharp, raw. His eyes flicked across the inscrutable as stone. Obi-Wan, his gaze heavy with unspoken warning. How can you do this? Anakin's voice cracked under the weight of his anger. How can you make me a council member and not take your seat? Young Skywalker, Windu said, each syllable laced with iron. Anakin sat, though fire raged in his veins. He clenched his fists until the leather of his gloves groaned. Humiliation curdled with pride. This was meant to be his triumph. Instead, it was a chain. Yoda's eyes half closed, as if peering through time itself. Patience, young one. A master you seek to be. Earned, such power must be. Patience, always patience. While the galaxy burned, they asked him to wait. while men died, while Padma's life trembled in his visions. They told him to sit quietly. Later, in the echoing halls, Obi-Wan walked beside him. "Anakin," he said softly, "you must not take this as an insult." "It is an insult." Anakin hissed. His voice was low, dangerous. "I've done more for the Order than any of them. I ended the war on Presitlin. I've led legions into battle, and still they treat me like a boy." Obi-Wan's hand touched his arm, a gesture of peace. "They trust you, Anakin, but they are cautious. These are dark times." Anakin pulled away. Dark times need strength, not caution. He stormed off, the shadows of the temple stretching long behind him. The summons came from the council again, a new weight in their voices. "A new test, Anakin," Windu said. "We need you to report on the Chancellor." The words froze him. "Report." His mind recoiled. "You want me to spy on him?" "He has stayed in office far beyond his term," Windu replied. "Emergency powers have no end. We must know his intentions." Anakin's chest burned. Palpatine had been his ally, his friend, the one who believed in him when the Order doubted. To betray that trust felt like treachery. That's treason. Anakin spat. "The Council acts for the Republic," Windu said, voice like stone. "You will act for us." He left the chamber with fury boiling in his gut. They didn't trust him. They never had. They wanted him as a pawn, not a brother. His loyalty split like a cracking blade. That night, Anakin sat in the Chancellor's office, bathed in the golden glow of Coruscant's night. Palpatine's voice flowed like warm honey. "They don't trust you," he said softly. "They fear you." Anakin stared at the city beyond the Transparistile. 1,000 ships crawled like fireflies across the endless dark. "Perhaps they should," Anakin murmured. Palpatine smiled, a thin, knowing curve. "They asked you to spy on me, didn't they?" Anakin's breath caught. "How do you?" "I see much," Palpatine whispered. "More than they ever will. They seek to control you, Anakin, to limit your power. But I would never hold you back." Anakin's gaze fell. He wanted to believe those words. Needed to. "I just want to save her," he whispered before. He could stop himself. "Her." Palpatine's voice dripped with curiosity, but did not press. Instead, he leaned closer. "There are ways. Ways the Jedi would never teach you." Anakin looked up sharply. The room seemed to darken. Shadows coiled like smoke around the Chancellor's words. "What ways?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Knowledge of the dark side," Palpatine said. "The power to prevent death." The breath left Anakin's lungs. The visions Podman dying, screaming, flashed behind his eyes. He would not let it happen. He would burn the galaxy first. "I can show you," Palpatine said, his voice a velvet dagger. "But you must trust me." Anakin swallowed hard. "Tell me." War thundered on. Worlds fell like rain. And in the chaos, Anakin's choice drew nearer. On the flagship of the Separatists, the duel blazed like a storm. Dooku's crimson blades clashed with blue, sparks raining across durasteel floors. Anakin moved like wrath incarnate, each strike heavier, faster. Obi-Wan faltered, thrown aside. "It was down to them, master and fallen apprentice." "You have hate," Dooku hissed, parrying blow after blow. "But you lack control," Anakin roared, his strength doubling. The darkness whispered, a sweet, burning river in his veins. One strike, then another, until Dooku's saber spun from his hands, clattering to the deck. The Count fell to his knees, breath ragged. "You are beaten," he rasped. Anakin raised both sabers, his and Dooku's. For a moment, time held its breath, then Palpatine's voice, sharp as lightning. Kill him. Anakin froze. His hands trembled. I shouldn't. It's not the Jedi way. Do it, Palpatine growled. He's too dangerous to be kept alive. Dooku's eyes widened. He saw his end in the boy's face. And in a single, shattering moment, Mercy died. Anakin swung. The blades scissored. Dooku's head rolled across the floor. Blood hissed on Durasteel. Silence. Only Anakin's breath, ragged and wild. He stared at what he had done, at what he had become. Palpatine smiled, slow and terrible. You did well, Anakin, very well. Something deep within Anakin cracked, and through the fracture, darkness seeped like poison. The war outside still raged, but in that quiet chamber, the greater war had begun, the war for Anakin Skywalker's soul, and the Jedi had already lost the first battle. Chapter 8. The fall of Skywalker. Rain lashed against the windows of the Senate office building. The war thundered on outside, but inside a different storm brewed. Mace Windu stood like a shadow carved from stone. His jaw was set, his voice low. The Chancellor is a Sith Lord. The words struck Anakin like a blade. He stared at Windu, breath tight in his chest. That's not possible. It's the truth, Windu said. You are right about him influencing the Senate. But it goes deeper. He's behind everything. Anakin shook his head, his world tilting. Palpatine, his mentor, his friend, the only one who believed in him. A Sith. The word felt like poison. I should go with you, Anakin said. No. Windu's voice was final, cold as Durasteel. Stay here. If what you told us is true, he's too dangerous to confront with distractions. Anakin's fists clenched. Distractions. That's what he was now. He wanted to argue, but Windu was already moving, cloak swirling like shadow. 3 Jedi followed him, faces grim. The door hissed shut. Silence pressed in. Anakin walked to the council chamber window, Coruscant sprawling beneath. His reflection stared back, eyes rimmed with fire and fear. If Palpatine died, Pobni died. The vision haunted him like a phantom, her breath faltering, her body cold in his arms. He whispered to the empty chamber, I need him. Palpatine's office was a cavern of gold and crimson, lit by Coruscant's eternal glow. He sat waiting, calm as a predator. His voice was silk when the door burst open and Windu entered with his Jedi Chancellor. Windu said, lightsaber igniting with a snap hiss, You're under arrest. Palpatine rose slowly. His smile never touched his eyes. Are you threatening me, Master Jedi? You've gone too far, Windu said. The smile vanished. Shadows deepened. Palpatine's voice became thunder. It's treason then. Crimson fire erupted from his sleeves. His saber ignited with a shriek, and the office exploded into motion. Anakin ran. Speeders howled past as he tore through the city, his heart pounding like war drums. Every step was agony. He could still hear Palpatine's voice. Only through me can you save her. The temple loomed behind him like a tomb. Ahead, the Senate tower stabbed into the clouds like a black blade. His breath burned. His mind screamed. Which side was justice? Which side was survival? The duel was a storm. Sidious spun like a scarlet hurricane, blades flashing death. Jedi fell in moments, their bodies strewn across marble. Windu pressed forward, each strike a hammer of violet light. Their sabers clashed in bursts of fire, their faces twisted in shadow and rage. Palpatine lunged, but Windu caught him, twisted, and kicked him sprawling across the floor. The Sith Lord's saber skittered away. "It's over," Windu roared, his blade leveled at Palpatine's throat. "You are under arrest." Palpatine's voice dripped venom. "No, no, you will die." Lightning ripped from his fingers, a torrent of blue fire. Windu raised his blade, deflecting the storm. Energy screamed through the room, scorching walls, shattering glass. Anakin burst in, his eyes wide with horror. Anakin Windu shouted over the crackling storm. "He's the traitor. He's the Sith Lord." Palpatine's face twisted under his own lightning, skin blackening, eyes blazing yellow. "He's trying to kill me. Help me." "Don't listen to him," Windu snarled. "He must stand trial." Anakin's breath came ragged. Trial. There was no time for trials. Padme's face flashed before his eyes, her scream echoing in his skull. "If he lives," Palpatine hissed through pain, "you lose her. Everything you love gone." Anakin's knees buckled. His heart split. His saber trembled in his hand. Anakin Windu's voice was a blade. "He's too dangerous to be kept alive." And something broke. Anakin moved. One strike. One. Scream. His blade carved through flesh and bone. Windu's eyes went wide as his arms spun away, severed in a spray of blood and sparks. Lightning roared again, unbound, consuming him. His body crashed through the shattered window and vanished into the endless night. Silence fell like ash. Anakin stood frozen, saber smoking in his hand. Windu was gone. The room reeked of ozone and death. His breath came in ragged gasps. "What have I done?" The words clawed from his throat. Palpatine rose from the shadows, his face a mask of ruin and triumph. "You are fulfilling your destiny." Anakin dropped to his knees. His saber clattered across the floor. "I should kill you," his voice broke. Palpatine's hand rested on his shoulder, cold as stone. "You can't. You need me. Together, we can save her." Anakin raised his eyes, tears cutting down his cheeks. "I will do whatever you ask. Just help me save her." Palpatine's smile was the end of the world. "Then kneel, Lord Vader." The name struck like iron. It tasted of blood and chains. But Anakin bowed his head. His soul burned. His heart screamed. And in the flicker of that moment, Skywalker died. Chapter 9. The night of Ashiza words fell like a blade drawn in the dark. Execute Order 66. They were not shouted. They did not need to be. They slid through the channels like scripture, cold and absolute. And the galaxy trembled on 1,000 worlds, helmets tilted. Troopers received the code, and without hesitation they turned their rifles. Jedi who had fought beside them, for years laughed, bled, survived with them, became targets in a heartbeat. Blaster fire bloomed like red flowers. Lightsabers flashed in desperate arcs. The Force screamed. On Megiddo, Ki-Adi-Mundi led his men across a bridge of ice and steel. He raised his saber, charging into the storm, then stopped. Their rifles were pointed at him. Wait, he managed, before the sky burned red. He fell in silence, snow drinking his blood. On Felucia, the jungle steamed under alien suns. Aayla Secura walked ahead, grace in every step. She didn't sense it until the bolts tore through her back. Flowers swallowed her body. On Kashyyyk, the roar of Wookiees mingled with screams. Yoda froze mid-stride as the Force convulsed in agony. He leapt just as green bolts tore the earth where he had stood. His blade sang. Clones fell. And then Yoda vanished into the trees, a ghost running from Fire Dot. And on Coruscant, Anakin Skywalker walked into the temple with the 501st at his back. Their armor gleamed under the dying sun, blue markings bright like a cruel joke. Children ran to the doors, small voices calling his name. "Master Skywalker," a boy said, clutching his training saber, "there are too many of them. What are we going to do?" Anakin stared at him. For a heartbeat, something human flickered in his eyes. Then it died. His blade ignited. Blue fire reflected in young eyes. The boy never screamed. The temple burned. Statues that had stood for 1,000 years cracked under heat. Holocrons shattered, spilling secrets into flame. Bodies littered marble, halls masters, knights, padawans. Even the smallest, huddled in the shadow of their fallen teachers. Anakin strode through it all, cloak dragging in pools of blood. His saber carved silence from every cry. No hesitation, no mercy, only the rhythm of slaughter. Above, the beacon that once called Jedi home pulsed in the night sky. But its message had changed. It no longer called for safety. It summoned death. The council chamber was still when he entered. The circle of chairs stood empty, cold. For a moment, Anakin just stood there, chest heaving, blade humming. He had dreamed of this room, dreamed of sitting among them as a master. Now it smelled of ash. He walked to the center and stared at the skyline. Coruscant glittered, blind to the massacre in its heart. The city sang, and beneath that song, he heard his own breath, harsh, mechanical in its rhythm, like something already not his own. Behind him, the fires roared louder. The temple, the only home he had ever known, died in red and gold. Its towers, once proud, now spears of smoke stabbing the heavens. Anakin did not look back. Somewhere in the Force, a light guttered out. The Jedi Order, ancient as time, ended in a single night. And in the ashes of its ruin, the Sith walked free. Chapter 1. Oh, the Mustafar. Crucible, the air of Mustafar, was fire. Rivers of molten rock, carved veins of red across black stone. The sky was smoke. The planet breathed heat like a furnace, and in that inferno, Anakin Skywalker came to kill the last of the separatists. The chamber trembled with the hum of machinery as he entered. The leaders rose in terror, their words stumbling. "Lord Vader," one began, voice cracking. The war, the blade ignited before the sentence ended. Blue light bathed the walls. Screams echoed, short and sharp, then were swallowed by silence. When it was over, only the machines still moved. Podsmeth's ship cut through the choking clouds, her heart pounding like a drum. She had heard the whispers, the reports of slaughter, but they could not be true. Not Anakin, not the boy she loved. The landing platform shuddered under the weight of heat as she ran down the ramp. And there he was, standing on the edge of a burning world, cloak billowing in the furnace wind. Anakin, he turned. His eyes burned gold. She froze. The man before her was Anakin in shape, but not in soul. His gaze was a storm, wild and endless. "Padma," he said, voice raw with something darker than rage. He walked toward her, each step heavy with fate. "I did it. I ended the war." She shook her head, tears streaking her face. "At what cost? They betrayed me," he snarled. "All of them. I brought peace for us, for our child." Her breath hitched. "Peace." Her voice broke on the word. "Anakin, you're breaking my heart." Behind her, the ramp groaned. A figure emerged, cloak drawn against the heat. Obi-Wan. Anakin's eyes snapped to him, and something inside shattered. "You brought him here." Anakin whispered, His voice was a blade unsheathing. "You betrayed me." "No," Podman cried, reaching for him. "Anakin, please." The Force slammed into her like a wall. She crumpled to the deck, unconscious, her breath shallow. Anakin stood over her, chest heaving. His hands shook as he looked at what he had done. But there was no time for remorse, only fury. He turned to Obi-Wan, and the sky burned with his rage. "You turned her against me." Anakin's voice tore through the roar of the volcano. "You've done that yourself," Obi-Wan said, his face carved in sorrow. His saber hissed to life, blue fire against the storm. "Don't make me kill you," Anakin growled, his blade blazing like a wound. "I will do what I must." "You will try." They collided like thunder. Sparks rained as blue clashed against blue. The ground shook beneath their fury. Anakin struck with the strength of a hurricane, every blow fueled by betrayal and loss. Obi-Wan met him with precision, every movement a plea unspoken. "Anakin, stop." Obi-Wan's voice broke between strikes. "This is not the way. I see through the lies of the Jedi." Anakin roared, driving him back toward the edge of a chasm where lava boiled below. "You were the chosen one," Obi-Wan's words ripped from his soul. "You were meant to destroy the Sith, not join them. I am what you made me." Anakin's face twisted in fury as his blade hammered down. The battle raged through control rooms and catwalks, through fire and steel, until the world itself seemed to shatter. The heat seared their skin. Molten rivers churned, hungrily waiting. At last, they stood on a narrow slope above the burning river. Obi-Wan climbed to the higher ground, saber ready, his voice hoarse with grief. "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." Anakin's breath came ragged. His eyes glowed like embers. "You underestimate my power. Don't try it." Obi-Wan's plea was the last mercy he had. Anakin leaped, blue light flashed, flesh parted, screams split the sky. Anakin hit the ground, his legs severed, his arm gone. He slid toward the river's edge, clawing at black rock as lava spit fire into his face. His screams became howls, raw and endless. Obi-Wan stood above him, blade trembling, tears carving rivers through ash. "You were my brother, Anakin," he whispered, voice breaking. "I loved you." The heat roared. The stench of burning flesh filled the air. Anakin's eyes glared up, hatred blazing through agony. "I hate you." Obi-Wan turned away. He couldn't finish it. He couldn't kill what was already dead. He took the fallen lightsaber, the blade of Skywalker, and walked into the smoke. Behind him, the fire claimed what was left of Anakin Skywalker. His screams rose above the inferno, then drowned in it, and in that crucible of flame, the last light of the Jedi's hope turned to ash. Chapter 11. The Black Masked Silence. The silence of a ship gliding through the stars. The silence of a body broken beyond recognition. Anakin Skywalker lay on a slab of cold durasteel, what remained of him barely human, flesh charred black, limbs severed. His lungs wheezed in shallow, dying gasps. His heartbeat was a faltering drum, but he lived, and that was enough. Sidious stood over him, a dark sentinel draped in shadow. His face was a ruin of age and power, his smile a crack in stone. "He will live," he told the droids. Not a request, a command. Machines descended, silver arms hissed, needles plunged into burned flesh, bone fused to metal, tubes slid into his throat, forcing breath where none remained. The smell of scorched tissue and oil choked the air. Anakin did not scream, he roared. A sound torn from his soul, raw as birth and death combined. The armor came piece by piece. First the durasteel limbs, forged black as midnight. Then the plasteel. Shell to cage what was left of his torso. Cold, heavy, merciless. The final piece was the mask. Its eyes glowed a hellish red as it descended, sealing with a hiss. Darkness swallowed him whole. Pain receded. Breath came through filters now, harsh and mechanical. His body was gone, replaced by iron and fire. Anakin Skywalker was dead. What rose in his place was something else, something hollow, something infinite. Sidious stepped closer, his voice coiling like smoke. "Lord Vader," he said. The name struck like chains, locking shut the last doors of his soul. Vader rose from the table, limbs hissing. His height was monstrous. His shadow stretched across the chamber like a scar. His first breath rasped through the mask, deep and terrible. A sound that would haunt the galaxy. He turned his head slowly. "Where is Pad?" His voice was a machine's growl, low and broken. Sidious smiled like a serpent. "It seems, in your anger, you killed her." The words tore through the chamber like a scream. Vader staggered. For a moment, the mask tilted skyward, as if trying to find air that no longer existed. "No, ... double quotes. The word rumbled like distant thunder. "She was alive, ... I felt it." Sidious's smile widened. "It appears you did not know ... your own strength." The sound that followed was not human. It was a roar that shook walls and hearts alike. Vader's fists clenched, metal bending under his wrath. The Force exploded outward, shattering consoles, ripping panels from walls. Droids crumpled like paper. The very air seemed to burn. When the storm ended, only silence remained, broken only by that breath. That endless, mechanical breath. Sidious stepped closer, his cloak brushing the fractured floor. "You are strong, Lord Vader, stronger than any Jedi, stronger than any Sith before you. Together, we will rule the galaxy." Vader stood still, towering in shadow. The rage that once burned bright in his eyes was gone. It lived now in the mask, in the sound of every breath. He knelt, slowly, reluctantly, chains rattling in the dark. And the galaxy bent with him. In the black void behind the mask, something whispered still, a name, a face. But it was faint now, drowned beneath metal and fire panned. The whisper faded, and in its place came silence. The coffin of armor was sealed. The last ember of Anakin Skywalker guttered out. Darth Vader rose. Chapter 12. The shadows, empire, the galaxy did not fall in a day. It fell in silence, piece by piece, as fear took root and hope bled away. Worlds that once raised banners of freedom now bowed under the weight of the imperial crest. Star destroyers blotted out suns. The hum of clone engine snow, stormtrooper now code through the void. A new order was born from the ashes of the Republic, and at its heart stood a shadow Vader moved like a storm across the stars. His arrival was a sentence, his breath a verdict. Jedi survivors were dragged from caves, temples, forgotten ruins, hunted like beasts. There were no trials, only executions. On Kessel, a young knight raised his blade against the black giant. His hands shook, but his eyes held defiance. "I will never join you." Vader's reply was silence, then a single strike. The boy fell into neat pieces, his saber still glowing in the dust. On Dantooine, a master begged for mercy. Vader gave none. His crimson blade sang through the dark, and the last words of wisdom turned to ash on dying lips. The Inquisitors came after creatures of half-light, twisted and broken, kneeling at Vader's feet. They spread like plague across the galaxy, rooting out the smallest sparks of Jedi flame. Vader trained them in cruelty, but never trust. Trust was a wound he would never suffer again. Yet in the void between slaughter, something lingered. Padme, her name was a ghost, her face a wound. When the battles ended and the blood cooled, he felt it crawling back into the cracks of his mind. He tried to bury her under steel and orders, under the Emperor's voice dripping with power and promises. But memory is a stubborn thing. Once, in the dead hush of space, Vader stood at the viewport of his Star Destroyer. The galaxy stretched like a wound of stars. His breath echoed in the empty chamber. Slow, mechanical. He wondered what color her eyes would have been when she saw the Empire rise. Would they have been proud or full of horror? The thought was a blade in his chest, though he had no flesh left to feel it. The Jedi Order was dust, its temples desecrated, its holocrons shattered, wisdom bleeding into the void. The Senate was a hollow shell, filled with sycophants who cheered their own chains. The galaxy had forgotten the word hope, but the Force had not forgotten balance. Somewhere, beyond the Emperor's sight, a spark still waited, small, hidden, patient, and though Vader could not feel it, it would one day find him. For now, he stood alone in Empire in the shape of a man wrapped in black, breathing death. Into a galaxy that dared not speak his name. Darth Vader, the shadow of the Empire. The ghost of a prophecy rotting in chains. Chapter 13. The birth of a spark. The galaxy burned, but on a forgotten world of dust and twin suns. Silence lingered. Tatooine, a planet the Empire ignored her, world of heat and hunger, where life clung to shadows. And in one of those shadows, a child slept, Luke. His name was small, but it carried the weight of destinies buried and broken. He did not know it yet. He knew only the hum of vaporators, the sting of sand in his eyes, the ache of wanting more than the horizon gave. Obi-Wan watched from the distance, a hermit in rags. His hut was a tomb of memory, filled with relics of a war that had ended in fire. He stared at the boy sometimes, wondering if he would ever forgive himself, for Anakin, for Padme, for the galaxy strangled by chains. He whispered to the wind, as if the Force could carry his words. You will not fail as he did. Far above, among the stars, Alderaan gleamed like a jewel. There, another child grew. Leia, a name hidden behind silks and politics. She would walk halls of power instead of dunes of dust, but the blood in her veins was the same. Bail Organa looked at her and thought of the promise made on a world of ash. He swore to keep her safe, even as darkness devoured the sky. The Emperor ruled from his throne of obsidian and lies. Vader knelt in the shadow of his master, his black mask a hollow. Vow, he spoke no name, not hers, not the child's. The secret slept beneath his rage, buried deep. Perhaps too deep, perhaps not. The galaxy called it peace. But peace built on bones is only silence, and silence cannot last. The Force moved still, slow as tides, unseen by those who thought it dead. It curled around that boy on Tatooine, that girl on Alderaan, whispering like breath through old ruins. Not yet. But soon, a spark is small. It makes no sound, but given time, it burns. Chapter 1. For the sun and the masks the desert was endless. Twin suns scorched the sky, burning the bones of a dead world. And under that brutal light, a boy stared at the horizon. Luke Skywalker, farmhand, dreamer. He wanted stars, adventure, anything beyond sand and silence. He did not know the galaxy had been waiting for him. The day began like any other until 2 droids changed everything. One spoke in whistles and chirps, the other in fretful tones of protocol. They carried secrets older than Luke's life, secrets that would shatter empires. He didn't know that when he bought them from a group of filthy jaws. He didn't know it when he scrubbed the dust from their shells. He only knew the message hidden inside. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. The words struck like a ghost rising from ashes. Obi-Wan, old Ben, the hermit who wandered the dunes with eyes like storms. Luke didn't know why his chest tightened when he heard that name. When they met, it was not by chance. The Force does not deal in chance. Obi-Wan stood in the doorway of his hut, cloaked in shadow. His beard was grey, his eyes tired, yet behind them burned a fire not yet dead. He spoke Luke's father's name like a wound reopened. Anakin Skywalker was a great Jedi, he said softly. Luke listened, wide-eyed, as Ben told him of a time when knights guarded peace, when blades of light cut through darkness. He gave the boy a weapon, a lightsaber, humming blue. Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough. Luke stared at the blade as it came alive in his hands, unaware that its glow carried the weight of blood and betrayal. Obi-Wan lied, not out of malice, out of mercy. Some truths would kill a soul too soon. The galaxy moved fast after that. Stormtroopers came like white death, burning his home to ash. His aunt and uncle were nothing but charred husks. Luke buried them in silence and turned his eyes to the stars. There was no going back. Far away, the shadows stirred. On a throne of steel and silence, Darth Vader breathed. Reports came, rebellion rising. A stolen plan, a name whispered. Skywalker. It scraped against the hollow inside him like bone on stone. A name he had not heard in years, but it meant nothing. It could mean nothing. He crushed the thought under iron and fire and turned to war. The Death Star rose like a metal god. Alderaan fell in light and screams. The galaxy held its breath as empires clashed and rebels fought in the dark. And through it all, Luke's path unfolded bright as a blade unsheathed. He would not see the mask yet, not fully, but the shadow was already moving toward him, a son, a father, to destinies drawn by gravity and blood, racing toward collision. The Force whispered again, soft as wind across a grave. This is only the beginning. Chapter 15. The Empire strikes. The wounds fell like ash on Hoth. The rebel base trembled under the roar of approaching doom. Star destroyers split the void, their shadows crawling over white plains. Then came the walkers tall, relentless, spitting fire into the ice. The ground shook, the sky burned. Luke fought in the chaos, his blade flashing blue against the storm. But the rebels could not hold. They scattered like sparks in the wind. Another world lost, another retreat into darkness. Luke fled not to safety, but to truth. To Dagobah world of rot and mist, where vines strangled trees and the air stank of age. There, in the swamp, he found a creature small and bent with time. Green skin, eyes bright as stars. I am wondering, the creature said, why are you here? Luke spoke of destiny, of Jedi, of hope. The creature listened on, then revealed himself. Yoda, the last master. The last whisper of an order turned to ash. Training began, heavy as the swamp itself. Days bled into nights. Luke ran through mud with Yoda on his back, leaped through roots, reached for stones that floated at a whisper of will. He learned of fear, of anger, of the dark that waits when hope falters. But even as he learned, a shadow coiled in his thoughts, a vision of friends in pain, Han, Leia, a city in clouds, a trap set in silence. He left before the lesson was done, against Yoda's warning, against the will of the Force. And far away the trap waited. Cloud City gleamed like glass in the sun, but its halls smelled of betrayal. Han frozen in carbonite, Leia bound in silence, Vader standing in the dark like a blade drawn from shadow. Luke faced him, saber burning in his hands. Words were few, blades spoke louder. The clash was thunder. Sparks screamed against steel. Luke fought with fury and fear, striking hard, striking blind. Vader was the storm patient, merciless, driving him back step by step, through halls of steel and air shafts choked with wind. They fought until Luke was cornered, chest heaving, saber heavy in his grip. Then the strike came, a sweep of crimson. Pain exploded. His scream tore through the chamber as his hand fell. Into the abyss, saber tumbling after. Vader loomed, his breath a drumbeat of doom. His voice rolled like thunder. There is no escape. Do not destroy yourself as Obi-Wan did. Luke spat blood, defiant even in ruin. I'll never join you. Vader's words fell like a blade. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough, Luke gasped. He told me you killed him. No, Vader said, and the word shook the world. I am your father. The air turned to ice. Luke's scream was silence. His soul cracked, split by truth too heavy to bear. Search your feelings, Vader said, voice soft now, almost human. You know it to be true. Luke clung to the edge, broken and bleeding. He could not kill Vader. He could not join him. Only one choice remained. He let go. The wind tore him away, down into the abyss, down into darkness that had no end. The wound was open now, and it would bleed until destiny bled with it. Chapter 16. The fire on End of the Forest slept under the moon of Endor. But war stirred among the trees. Rebel soldiers crawled through shadow. Ewoks whispered in the leaves. Above, the sky burned, with Steel Star destroyers locked in battle, and beyond them the Death Star waiting like an open maw. Luke walked alone into the heart of darkness. His hands were bound, but his choice was not. Stormtroopers marched him through metal corridors to a throne of obsidian and light. The Emperor sat upon it, robed in shadow, his smile thin as a blade. Vader stood beside him, silent as stone. So the Emperor hissed, voice curling like smoke, "The son of Skywalker has come to me." Luke stared at Vader, searching for something, anything in the mask. There was nothing, only the hollow breath of a machine. The Emperor rose, circling like a vulture. "Strike me down. Take your father's place at my side." His words dripped poison into the air. Luke's jaw tightened. His fingers twitched toward the saber at his belt. The battle above raged, the trap closing on his friends. He felt their fear like knives in his mind. The Emperor's laughter was thunder in his skull. "Your fleet is lost," the old man whispered. "Your friends will die. All is as I have foreseen, Luke snapped. His blade ignited, green fire roaring to life as he struck at the throne. Lightning fast, a crimson blade rose Vader's. The clash rang like doom. The duel began. Steel screamed against steel as father and son battled beneath the Emperor's gaze. Vader pressed hard, strikes heavy as stone, forcing Luke back. "You cannot hide forever," he rumbled, saber slashing through shadows. Luke leaped to the high platform, chest heaving, fear clawing at his throat. "I will not fight you, father." Vader's voice was cold, iron. "Then you will die." The storm raged. Blades carved fire into the dark. Luke fought harder, anger burning through his veins. For Leia, for Han, for all the screams in his mind. His strikes became wild, relentless, driving Vader to his knees. A final blow hacked through the dark giant's wrist, and the black hand fell, sparks spitting into the void. Luke froze, chest heaving, his saber raised for the kill. He stared at Vader's severed stump, then at his own gloved hand. He was becoming. The Emperor's laughter split the air. "Good. Your hate has made you powerful. Now fulfill your destiny. Take your father's place at my side." Luke looked down at the broken figure before him, this monster of steel and shadow who had once been a man. His breath slowed. The saber hummed in his hand, then went still. He threw it aside. "I am a Jedi," he said, voice steady as stone. "Like my father before me." The Emperor's smile curdled into hate. "So be it, Jedi." Lightning exploded from his fingers, a storm of blue fire ripping into Luke's flesh. His scream tore through the chamber as agony consumed him. He fell, writhing, pleading, his voice raw. "Father, please." Vader stood motionless, torn between chains and blood. The lightning lit his mask in strobing bursts. Luke's screams echoed the cries of another life, long dead, and then something broke. The Emperor shrieked as the black giant moved, to strike Luke, but to lift the throne's serpent. Lightning scorched his armor, melted steel, burned flesh long dead. But he held on. With a roar that shook the stars, Vader hurled Sidious into the abyss. Darkness swallowed the Sith Lord's scream. Silence fell save for the rasp of Vader's breath, shallow and broken. The Emperor was dead. But so was the mask. Chapter 17. The death of Vader. The Death Star burned. Alarms wailed as fire crawled through its veins. Luke dragged his father's broken body through smoke and ruin, the weight of armor heavy as grief. Explosions tore the sky, but he did not stop. He would not leave him. They reached the hangar, flames licking the walls. Vader collapsed against a shuttle ramp, strength bleeding from him like oil from shattered steel. His breath rasped, slower. Now each inhale a battle. "Help me. Take this mask off," he said, voice a whisper through static. Luke froze. "But you'll die. Nothing can stop that now." His tone was not command. It was plea. Just. For once. "Let me look on you with my own eyes." Luke's hands trembled as they reached for the locks. The hiss of pressure filled the air as the black mask split, piece by piece. The face beneath was pale as ash, scarred by fire, eyes sunken, yet soft, human. Luke stared through tears. "Father." Anakin Skywalker gave a weak smile, lips cracked and bleeding. "You were right about me." His voice was fragile, but in it lived the man who had once been a hero. "Tell your sister you were right." Luke shook his head, tears cutting tracks through soot. "I won't leave you. You already have, Anakin whispered. The faintest breath left his lungs, a ghost escaping metal. His eyes closed, and the storm inside him stilled. Luke lowered his father gently to the floor as fire chewed the hangar walls. He looked at the empty armor, the black mask that had swallowed a soul, and for the first time he saw it for what it was: coffin. He carried the body aboard the shuttle as the station tore itself apart. Behind them, the Empire's might died in a bloom of fire. On Endor, the night was calm. Stars watched in silence as flames licked at the pyre. The armor burned, black steel cracking under the heat. Sparks floated into the forest sky like lost. Sol's Luke stood alone, the blaze painting his face in gold and crimson. He watched the fire consume the mask, the chains, the name Darth Vader. What lay beneath was ash. He did not cry, not for the monster, not for the man. He only watched until the last ember fell, and the night closed over the flames. Anakin Skywalker was gone. The prophecy fulfilled not in glory, but in ruin and mercy. And in the quiet between stars, the galaxy exhaled. Chapter 18 Echoes. Through the Force, the war was over, but the galaxy did not heal overnight. Wreckage drifted in the black, the bones of fleets that once carried empires. Worlds scarred by fire now whispered of freedom, their skies heavy with smoke and silence. The Emperor was dead. The Death Star shattered. Darth Vader consumed by his own flames. But darkness does not die in a day. It lingers in whispers, in scars no fire can cleanse. On Endor, the forest sang with celebration. Drums echoed through the trees. Fires burned high, shadows dancing in the night. Laughter rose where once there was fear. Yet Luke stood apart, his gaze lost to the stars. He saw them, their two figures of light, watching in silence. Obi-Wan, Yoda, and between them, a man, who was no longer a mask, no longer a monster. Anakin Skywalker smiled at his son, and then the light faded like morning mist. Leia stood beside Luke, the truth burning on her lips and in her blood. They said nothing, but they understood. Brother, sister, Skywalker, a name bound by fate. The galaxy turned, slow and heavy, like a great beast waking from chains. The Jedi were gone, yet not forgotten. The Sith were dead, yet the shadow clung to ruins older than empires. The Force stirred, neither bright nor dark, but endless and patient. Balance was never still. It was a tide that pulled, a storm that slept only to rise again. And somewhere, in a tomb swallowed by time, a holocron whispered to the dark. A voice old as dust, soft as venom. It is not over.